What you are about to hear is not a work of fiction, but a chilling account of real events reported by eyewitnesses, investigators, and historical records. If you believe that the unexplained doesn't exist, then this story might just change your mind. Have you ever stepped into a silent house, felt a sudden chill on your neck, and questioned why a shiver ran down your spine when there were no windows open and no fans whirring? That tiny moment can make you stop and wonder what could be hiding just beyond your view, as our instincts often pick up on things before we even realize it. Many of us push that strange feeling aside and continue with our day, convinced it's just our imagination playing tricks on us. In the tale you are about to hear, the cold breeze was just the beginning, hinting at something much larger and more mysterious lurking ahead. In a quiet neighborhood in Bothell, Washington, a man named Keith Linder and his girlfriend believed they had discovered the ideal rental home. In 2012, they held the keys tightly, their hearts racing with excitement and dreams of what was to come. It was meant to be a new beginning, a warm spot to unwind and create unforgettable memories. The yard looked like the perfect place for planting bright flowers or having a fun barbecue with friends. The rooms were spacious, perfect for keeping all their favorite books and gadgets safe and sound. They stepped inside with excitement, completely unaware that their lives were about to take a dark turn, leaving them to question how they would survive each day without losing their minds. At first, everything felt peaceful. Keith loved technology, so he carefully arranged his devices in the living room, excited for what was to come. He carefully arranged his books and games on the shelves, making sure everything was in its right place. His girlfriend made it special with her own decorations and photos, each one telling a little story. They seemed like any other couple moving into a new house, but something felt different this time. But soon, strange little things started to occur. One day, something strange happened. An object they were sure was resting on the kitchen counter mysteriously appeared on the floor in the hallway. They looked at each other, whispering, "Did you move that?" The answer was always no. They brushed it off as just some lost things in the chaos of unpacking. But the weirdness kept getting stronger. One night, a soft tapping sound echoed through the darkness, almost like someone was quietly knocking on the wall. They looked everywhere, but there was nothing to be found. The following morning, they noticed a light that had been switched off glowing brightly as they opened their eyes. Once more, they searched for an easy answer. Perhaps they had just forgotten to flip the switch. But inside, they both sensed a growing unease that something was off. Suddenly, everything changed, and the situation became much scarier. Fires began to spark in unexpected corners of the house. At first, they were tiny, just like a singed corner of a piece of paper. Suddenly, the pages in the books ignited in strange ways, flames spreading from the center and reaching outward, leaving everyone bewildered. One day, Keith stumbled upon a Bible that was burned in the center, its pages blackened and mysterious. It didn't look like it had been scorched from the outside, as if a candle had brushed against it. It seemed as if a mysterious light was glowing from deep inside its pages. This rattled Keith deeply. Fire can be really scary. It moves fast and can get out of control before you know it. Now they had to be on edge, fearing that something was out there, trying to set their house ablaze. Every time the scent of smoke filled the air, their hearts raced, and they dashed to find out what was burning this time. Before moving in, Keith and his girlfriend never thought much about ghosts or anything strange. They were just an ordinary couple, living their lives without a hint of the mysteries that awaited them. They were just ordinary people with everyday jobs. Now, they were scared to be in their own house. Alongside the raging fires, something even more unsettling was unfolding. Strange graffiti began appearing on the walls. The letters appeared dark and ashy, frequently forming menacing words. Keith stumbled upon letters etched in soot, reading "K." It felt like a direct hit, as if someone was targeting him specifically. He wondered how it was possible for someone to sneak in and do that without leaving any footprints or signs of a break-in. He carefully checked each lock again. Everything seemed normal, but something felt off. There was no sign of an intruder. So the big question was, who or what was scrawling those strange words on his walls? Keith and his girlfriend were on a mission, searching for answers that felt just out of reach. They wondered aloud to the landlord if the house held any secrets from the past. They dug through online records, hoping to uncover any crimes or tragedies that had happened on that land. They discovered nothing unusual, no famous incidents that people typically associate with ghosts. The house stood in a quiet neighborhood, far from any old graveyard. Next, Keith thought about calling the police, but he hesitated. What could he possibly say to them? He couldn't figure out how to describe the chaos, objects zooming through the air, strange messages appearing on the walls, and fires erupting out of nowhere, all while there was no sign of anyone actually there. He started to consider contacting paranormal experts, even though he wasn't entirely convinced that such things were real. But when your house starts acting strange and breaking all the rules, who can you turn to for help? A number of paranormal investigators and small ghost hunting teams became intrigued by their tale. A group arrived at the house, carrying cameras, voice recorders, electromagnetic field detectors, and other tools designed to capture ghosts in action. They placed these gadgets in various rooms, eager to catch any movements, glowing orbs, or mysterious voices that might echo through the air. Keith decided to let them record through the night. As the sun rose, they gathered around to watch the footage, their hearts racing with anticipation. Sometimes, they spotted odd lights drifting in the air, or dark figures that seemed to shift when no one was around. They said they could capture voices that they couldn't hear themselves, but those voices showed up on the devices. People often refer to these as EVPs, which stands for electronic voice phenomena. The investigators listened closely to the recordings and were startled to hear strange words and eerie growls echoing back at them. People online were buzzing with arguments about the case. Some thought the recordings showed that spirits were really there. Some people whispered that the investigators were just tricking themselves, while others claimed the devices were only catching random bits of static. Keith took a deep breath, determined to keep his cool and remain open to whatever might happen next. He was determined not to fall for any tricks, but he also knew he couldn't overlook any real evidence if it was right in front of him. He collected every piece of information he could find and started writing everything down in a log. Whenever something unusual occurred, he carefully noted the date, time, and details of what he witnessed or heard. He snapped pictures of the charred pages, the wild graffiti, and the scattered objects that had tumbled from the shelves. He was, in a sense, keeping track of everything that happened. It made him feel powerful, or at least gave him a chance to prove to everyone that he wasn't just dreaming things up. Some people just chuckled and brushed it aside. They insisted it was just his imagination. Some people whispered that he or his girlfriend might be starting the fires on purpose just to get attention, but that idea felt far-fetched. Why would they take such a big chance, putting everything at risk for something that isn't even real? Some people wondered if a carbon monoxide leak might be making them see things, but the experts checked and found nothing wrong. People looked closely for any hidden wires or strange tricks that could be moving things, but they found nothing at all. At the same time, things were still happening all around. It only got worse from there. Keith and his girlfriend shifted from feeling a bit annoyed and puzzled to being genuinely frightened. Picture this. It's the dead of night, and suddenly, you hear a loud crash. You leap out of bed, your heart racing, and rush into the living room. There, you see a table turned upside down, but the house is empty. What could have happened? Picture this. You walk into your room and find strange words written on your wall. They say you must leave or face a terrible fate, and the letters are made of something that looks like ash. What could it mean? Who did this? You can feel your heart racing as you try to figure it out. It really gets under your skin. They thought about leaving, but moving costs a lot of money, and they had already signed a lease. They clung to a flicker of hope, believing that if they could just find a way to soothe the mysterious force behind the chaos, everything might finally come to a halt. A group of mediums and spiritual advisors came over, ready to perform their blessings and cleansing rituals using sage. They whispered prayers, splashed holy water around, and attempted to communicate with any spirits that might be lurking nearby. At times, the house seemed to settle down, a quiet peace hanging in the air for a moment. Then it would suddenly erupt again with loud banging sounds or a new burst of fire. It felt like it would never disappear completely. As the days passed, Keith began to connect with seasoned investigators from various fields. Some even traveled all the way from other countries, like the United Kingdom. They arrived with fancy new tools and spent time with Keith, watching the surroundings closely and conducting experiments that made everyone curious. People said they saw things moving by themselves, and others felt a heavy, eerie feeling in the house. They also attempted to prove things wrong. They searched for ordinary reasons behind every strange occurrence. When they couldn't find anything, they started to think that maybe something strange and otherworldly was happening. They shared some of their discoveries in small online groups or talked about them on podcasts. The Bothell Hell House story never made it to the big headlines, mostly lingering in the shadows of niche circles. The big TV networks didn't take the bait, perhaps because it didn't have an exciting backstory, like a mysterious murder in the basement or whispers of an ancient curse lurking in the shadows. It looked like an ordinary house in a typical neighborhood, but inside, strange and scary things were unfolding. Keith began posting videos and pictures on social media. The videos captured chairs sliding across the floor, doors banging shut, and lights that flickered ominously. But the reactions online were all over the place. Some people looked on in awe, whispering, "This is real proof," while others scoffed, "This is obviously staged." Keith stood firm, insisting he had no reason to fake it. He had a steady job, but he was putting his money on the line with the property, and fear was always lurking in the back of his mind. He wasn't earning a lot from this. He could feel the minutes slipping away, taking with them his calm and clarity. As the tale began to circulate, a handful of determined ghost hunters started to investigate further. The neighbors were interviewed, and they claimed they hadn't seen anything unusual outside the house. Some neighbors said they noticed Keith looking really tired or stressed. They even heard him talking about strange noises that seemed to come from nowhere. Yet, from the street, the house appeared just like any other two-story home in the neighborhood. A car sits quietly in the driveway, the lawn perfectly trimmed, and at night, a porch light flickers on, casting shadows that dance in the darkness. Everything seemed ordinary, but something strange was brewing beneath the surface. Keith felt a chill run down his spine. The worst part was the feeling that something was out there, watching him, lurking in the shadows, something he couldn't see or make sense of. He talked about moments when he sensed something watching him or felt a cold wind brush against the back of his neck. He could hear voices that seemed to come from nowhere, calling his name or whispering nasty things in the hallway. No matter how hard you try to stay calm and think clearly, that kind of thing can really rattle you. On many nights, sleep was interrupted by odd sounds or the sudden beep of an alarm that went off for no apparent reason. The graffiti sent chills down his spine, especially the ones that called him out by name. It seemed like something in the house knew him and was determined to make him leave. The fires were the most terrifying part. Whenever Keith or his girlfriend caught a whiff of smoke, their hearts would start pounding. They were terrified that the whole house could burst into flames at any moment. At times, the flames flickered softly, just enough to singe the edge of a chair or a forgotten toy in the living room. Sometimes, whole pages of a book would catch fire, and if they didn't notice it quickly, the flames could spread everywhere. They always had a fire extinguisher close by, and every time they spotted a flicker of light that didn't belong, they felt a rush of unease. Being on edge all the time can really drain someone's mind. They felt a knot in their stomachs at the thought of leaving the house empty while they went to work. What if they returned to discover it had turned to ashes? But even if one of them stayed home to keep watch, it didn't mean they were safe at all. Strange happenings that feel like a ghostly presence can be completely unpredictable. It occurs unexpectedly, almost as if it takes pleasure in catching people off guard. As the months stretched into years, Keith couldn't shake the feeling that he was trapped in a never-ending nightmare. He jotted down every detail, snapped photos, recorded videos, and urged others to see the bizarre happenings, hoping to share the weight of his experiences and not feel so isolated. He even wrote a book, wanting to lay out the evidence clearly for everyone to see. He appeared on podcasts and smaller YouTube shows, sharing his thoughts and stories. Some viewers believed him completely, saying it was one of the most gripping modern haunting stories they had ever come across. Some people were still unsure, insisting that any claims about the supernatural required more than just recordings or personal stories to be believed. It was tough for Keith to manage the pressure of needing to prove himself while facing daily frights. He and his girlfriend sat down for some important conversations about their future and what steps to take next. Every time they thought about leaving, they had to weigh the practical stuff, finding a new place, spending money they didn't have, and the nagging fear that whatever haunted the Bothell house might just come with them. Some hauntings seem to cling to people instead of just places. However, some experts believe that poltergeists are linked to a specific location or a certain event that happened there long ago. In the end, they realized that their health and safety mattered more than sticking to their lease. It was a tough choice, but they knew it was the right one. The worry that a huge fire might wipe out everything was impossible to brush aside. After a series of terrifying events, they finally decided to move out in 2016. Some say they might have left a little earlier, but the exact dates are unclear. Walking away from that house felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders, but there was also a heavy sadness in my heart. They thought they could create a happy life there, but it quickly became a place filled with fear and darkness. Once they were gone, a new question lingered in the air. Had the activity really come to an end? Did the new tenants experience the same eerie forces? If that's the case, they never stepped up to share their story like Keith did. Maybe the next people didn't feel a thing. Or maybe they chose to stay silent if they knew anything at all. I'm not really sure. After moving to a new place, Keith noticed that the strange events in his life had almost come to a halt. He started to think that it was the house or the land that was to blame, not him at all. He still had strange moments now and then, but nothing compared to the fires and the graffiti. As time passed, he worked hard to recover from the pressure and the feeling of being threatened in the place he should feel safest. When you think about it, some people say this case is one of the most well-documented hauntings of our time. Just look at all the videos, photos, and logs that Keith gathered. It's hard to believe what he captured. But not many people know about it, maybe because it doesn't have a blockbuster movie or an exciting historical twist to grab attention. Instead, it lingers on paranormal discussion boards, in small shows, and among those who delve into ghost stories. This serves as a chilling reminder that if strange things can occur in an ordinary suburban home, surrounded by all our modern gadgets, we might need to reconsider everything we think we know about the hidden aspects of reality. Maybe we should think twice and gather more proof before we believe that poltergeists actually exist. Keith has mentioned over and over that he gets why people question his story. He confesses that it's truly unbelievable and feels almost unreal unless you've witnessed it firsthand. Yet, he admits he can't ignore what happened to him and his girlfriend. They felt a deep sense of fear and panic. The flames flickered ominously, and the chilling messages scrawled on the walls felt all too real. Each day felt the same, dragging on with no end in sight. The investigators who showed up and talked about the strange things they saw seemed honest, at least from what he could see. The landlord found no benefit in owning a house known for its eerie reputation. Actually, it might make it tougher to find renters for the property down the line. From Keith's perspective, it just doesn't add up to claim it was all a hoax. On the flip side, science demands evidence that can be tested, repeated, and confirmed by different people in controlled settings. Hauntings often have a mind of their own, making it hard for anyone to figure them out. Things can take a surprising turn, especially when the clock strikes midnight or when no one is watching. Even when cameras catch something on film, some people argue it might not be real. That's the danger of trying to prove a ghost story. There's always a tricky balance between what people say they see and the reality that it can't just be recreated whenever you want in a lab. Some people wonder, if it was really that intense, why not just put cameras in every room all the time and stream it live? Keith had set up cameras in a few rooms, but the house was so big that there were still some corners left uncovered. At times, the cameras picked up strange movements or odd lights, but there were moments when they completely missed the big happenings. People who came to see the house for themselves and witnessed things moving on their own walked away feeling sure that something strange and mysterious was happening there. Some people might think it was a trick, but no one ever found any wires or hidden gadgets to prove it. The little fires are still one of the toughest mysteries to unravel. It's one thing for a picture frame to suddenly fall from a shelf because of vibrations or a loose screw. It's strange when random objects suddenly catch fire in ways that don't follow the usual patterns. It makes you wonder what could be causing it. It was hard to believe that Keith and his girlfriend were doing this on purpose. If they were, it was a risky move that could lead to trouble. There had to be a different reason behind it, something that made more sense. There are definitely safer ways to grab attention than putting everything at risk with a house fire. As time passed, Keith's story began to attract a small but dedicated group of fans. He sat down for interviews, speaking in a calm and straightforward way about the events, making sure not to blow anything out of proportion. He showed everyone the photos, logs, and videos, allowing them to decide for themselves what to believe. The name Bothell Hell House spread across the internet, suggesting something truly terrifying about the haunting that people were talking about. It may not have the same fame as Amityville or the Enfield poltergeist in England, but for some investigators, it holds an equally gripping intensity. The story unfolds in the 21st century, surrounded by modern gadgets, adding an unexpected twist that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Old haunted houses are filled with stories from long ago, when people didn't have the technology we do now. These tales can send shivers down your spine, making you wonder what really happened in those dark, creaky rooms. In this place, digital cameras captured moments, audio recorders saved voices, and the internet buzzed with the speed of sharing everything. Yet, many people out there have no idea about the Bothell Hell House. It never received the huge media attention or movie deal that usually makes a haunting famous. Keith sometimes thinks maybe it's because the story doesn't wrap up neatly around one big event, like a scary crime or a secret graveyard. Maybe it's easier for people to believe in ghosts when there's a sad story behind them. But ordinary neighborhoods might hold secret energies or layers of history that we don't notice right away. The ground beneath the house might hold secrets from long ago, stories that aren't written down anywhere easy to discover. Or maybe the reason isn't connected to any past disaster at all. Some ideas suggest that poltergeist activity might actually come from the people living in the house. It's like their stress or emotional struggles somehow turn into something real and spooky. Even though Keith and his girlfriend were grown-ups with no big problems, there was still a chance that something could come up. In many past poltergeist stories, there's often a teenager living in the house. It's believed that their teenage angst can increase the strange energy around them. But things were different this time. In the end, Keith realized he might never uncover the whole truth. He started fresh in a new town, leaving Bothell far behind. He kept chatting with anyone curious about what had happened, carefully holding on to all the information he collected. Even after all this time, small groups of researchers continue to share his videos and photos during their talks about today's hauntings. It's said that finding a recent, well-documented case of extreme poltergeist activity is a rare opportunity. Some people just can't believe it. They say that until there's solid evidence, it's nothing more than another spooky tale. In a sense, that really is the case. It's impossible to truly prove something if we can't catch it or make it happen again in a controlled setting. For Keith, it was more than just a tale. It was a tough journey that changed everything for him. If you've seen his videos or read his posts, you might get a shiver down your spine, recalling that eerie moment at the beginning of this story when you sensed a cold spot in a cozy room. It could have been nothing at all, or perhaps it was a sneak peek into something mysterious. Stories like the Bothell Hell House have a strange way of making us think. They make us pause and wonder if there's something beyond what we see every day. They show us that even in a typical suburban neighborhood, filled with high-tech alarms and sleek cameras, strange things can occur that leave us puzzled and searching for answers. It can happen to everyday people with regular jobs and weekend pastimes, those who never thought they would find themselves caught in a whirlwind of strange objects and flickering flames. Some people who hear this story might say, "I don't believe in ghosts," and that's okay. Some people will say, "I think something happened to them, but I'm not sure what." Then there are others who believe in the paranormal and see Keith's story as evidence of something strange. Ultimately, everyone has to make their own choice. That's just how haunting stories are. They exist in a shadowy place, caught between what can be seen and what remains hidden. The story of the Bothell Hell House teaches us that the scariest secrets can be lurking right behind the simplest doors. As you pass by that house, you would never imagine the fear that gripped its former residents, day in and day out. Fresh paint covers the walls that used to display menacing words, hiding the terrifying memories of Keith and his girlfriend. They felt a deep fear as they searched for safety in a place that offered none. When we imagine haunted houses, we often see old, creaky mansions with tall, spooky towers and thick cobwebs hanging in the corners. Imagine a rental in a quiet Washington neighborhood. The lawn is perfectly trimmed, and the neighbors wave hello. But something feels off, like a secret waiting to be uncovered. But what if we opened our minds to what a haunted place could really be like? If the story of the Bothell Hell House is real, it suggests that the unknown can show up anywhere. at any moment and affect anyone. And that thought is scarier than any story because it shows that no one is truly safe just because their house is new or their neighborhood seems calm. Sometimes, the most frightening things sneak up on us when we're not looking, changing our safe and cozy places into something we don't even recognize. Keith still talks to some of the investigators who spent time in that eerie house, and they share updates about the strange new cases they dive into. But a lot of them say they've never seen anything like what happened in Bothell. There were fires, scary messages, and strange happenings all mixed together in one wild case. It was a unique and powerful experience that stuck with them, no matter if they came in as doubters or supporters. For Keith, the most important lesson was to listen to his gut when things didn't seem right and to ask for help, even if he worried that no one would believe him. In moments like this, keeping quiet or wishing it will just disappear can put you in even greater danger. He was desperate for help, reaching out to spiritual leaders, paranormal experts, and anyone willing to listen. At this point, you might be thinking about what it would be like to spend time in a place with such a mysterious past, if you ever had the opportunity. Some adventurous people might say yes, eager to catch a glimpse of something otherworldly. Most people would dash away, eager to avoid even a second of that tension. The Bothell Hell House story reveals that some haunted houses are not just remnants of history, but are very much alive in the present. Some are right here, right now, in a world filled with smartphones and smart TVs. And that could be the most surprising turn of events yet. If strange things like this can happen in a regular house, it makes you wonder if ghost stories are really just a thing of the past or if they can still creep into our everyday lives. Sometimes, new places can hold secrets if you're open to the idea. As Keith handed over his keys and walked away from the house, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders, but the memories lingered, haunting him in the shadows. He claims that the nightmares still haunt him, filled with the flames and the chilling sight of those ominous words scrawled on the walls. He thinks about whether whatever caused those strange happenings is still hiding there, just waiting for the next person to stumble upon it. Or maybe it has vanished, searching for a new place to belong or slipping away into the unknown where such forces disappear. No one really knows the truth. Without regular news coverage, we have no idea who moved in after them or what they might have gone through. The place looked different now, with fresh paint and a shiny new look, but something felt off, like a secret waiting to be uncovered in the stillness of the neighborhood. That's just how things happen in life. If no one keeps sharing the tale, even the weirdest mysteries can disappear from everyone's memory. But Keith chose to tell the story himself, using his own words, along with pictures and videos. He felt a strong urge to warn others and find some kind of closure. For 4 long years, from 2012 to 2016, he experienced something that was beyond his understanding, and he needed the world to know. He wishes that if anyone else finds themselves in a similar situation, they will realize they are not alone and that these challenges, whatever they may be, can be confronted. The question of whether they can be solved remains a mystery. Some of the investigators who explored the Bothell Hell House still believe that the world holds mysteries far beyond our imagination. They view Keith's experiences as just one piece of a larger puzzle, where ordinary families find themselves swept up in a storm of strange and unexplainable events. Some people think of it as a mystery that we haven't solved with today's science. People often wonder if, someday, we'll find a natural reason behind these strange happenings. Maybe there's a hidden energy or strange force out there that we just can't see or understand yet. The truth might be hiding right in the middle, waiting to be discovered. If you're curious to dig deeper, you can find Keith's published records and the discoveries made by paranormal teams on special websites, in podcasts, and in little documentaries that never made it to the big screens. If you're ready to jump in, there's a lot to explore and discover. But it's not quite like having a blockbuster movie or a popular TV show spending hours on it. Some people think it's a pity, but others believe it made the story feel more real and less over the top. All we know for sure is that a man named Keith Linder and his girlfriend lived in a house that felt more and more dangerous every day. Strange sounds echoed around them, and they watched in disbelief as things shifted on their own. They saw fires ignite out of nowhere. They discovered strange and unsettling messages scrawled across the walls. They did everything possible to halt it or at least figure it out. In the end, they decided to go, thinking it was the best choice for themselves. No matter what you think it was, a poltergeist, a furious spirit, a trick, or something we just don't understand, the effect it had on Keith's life was undeniable. For what felt like forever, he was gripped by fear, stress, and confusion. And that, without a doubt, is true. One of the most important things to learn from the Bothell Hell House is that the scariest moments can surprise us in the most ordinary places. This isn't just a tale about an old house with shattered windows and buried mysteries. In a quiet neighborhood, there stood a modern house filled with the latest electronics and ordinary furniture. But something felt off, as if the walls held secrets waiting to be uncovered. That's what makes it so creepy. It hints that the mysterious can be lurking right next to us, in broad daylight, within the safety of our own homes. If that thought makes you shiver, just think about the next time you step into your house, set your keys on the table, and start to wonder if they might mysteriously disappear without you even moving them. Usually, nothing will happen at all. But sometimes, a house turns into a place where strange things happen, making us question what is really true. The Bothell Hell House is one of those places that people still talk about. Those who experienced it have their stories, while others only know about it from what they read online. The story wraps up, leaving you with lingering questions. Was there really a haunting that took place there? Could it be the work of spirits, some strange energy, or something else entirely that defies explanation? Did Keith Linder and his girlfriend accidentally find a door that leads to another world? Or could it be just a clever ruse? They felt a wave of relief wash over them as they finally shut that front door for good, leaving everything behind. And that chill, the one we mentioned at the beginning, never really went away.